When we talk about women and their ability to flip, to change, to shift, sometimes suddenly, most people think of it as inconsistency. They label it as being fickle or indecisive, but that's an oversimplification and, in many cases, a dangerous misunderstanding. What you're really witnessing isn't inconsistency, it's adaptability. It's the ability to shift gears when the environment, the relationship, or the emotional climate changes. And it's important to understand this isn't random. It's not some chaotic impulse. It's rooted in both biology and social conditioning. Throughout history, women have been placed in a position where survival wasn't always dependent on physical dominance. Future. So instead, nature gave them something else, the ability to read situations, to sense danger or opportunity before it's obvious, and to respond accordingly. That's not weakness, that's intelligence on a primal level. This is why a woman can be deeply in love with you 1 month, fully committed, making plans for the future, and then almost overnight feel emotionally disconnected, even cold. And to the man experiencing this, it feels like betrayal. It feels like a switch has been flipped, and nothing makes sense. But to her, she's not flipping for no reason. She's responding to a shift, maybe in your energy, maybe in the relationship dynamic, maybe in the way you've been showing up for yourself. She's detecting something you might not even be aware of yet. Women are highly attuned to the emotional climate of a relationship. A subtle change in your tone, a decline in your ambition, a lack of assertiveness, or even just you becoming too predictable, these can all register as a kind of danger signal. Not necessarily danger in the sense of physical harm, but danger in the sense of emotional stagnation, a loss of polarity, a slow erosion of the attraction that drew her to you in the first place. And when that internal alarm goes off, the shift begins. Here's what a lot of men misunderstand. When a woman changes, it's not always about something you did wrong in that moment. Sometimes it's about an accumulation of small things you didn't even notice. She's been tracking them subconsciously. She's been sensing patterns, and by the time you notice she's different, the shift has already happened internally. You're not seeing the beginning, you're seeing the result. The duality here is fascinating. On one side, a woman can be deeply nurturing, fiercely loyal, and emotionally invested. On the other, she can detach with stunning speed and clarity when she feels the situation no longer serves her well-being. And this is where men get blindsided. They've been conditioned to believe love is this permanent, unchanging force that, once established, is locked in forever. But female nature doesn't operate like that. It operates like a constant feedback loop. Is this relationship still fulfilling, inspiring, and safe? If yes, she leans in. If no, she recalibrates. And here's where philosophy meets psychology. If you look at human behavior through an evolutionary lens, adaptability is the highest form of intelligence. In nature, the species that survives isn't the strongest or the fastest, it's the one that adapts best to change. For women, this adaptability has been fine-tuned over thousands of years, because their survival and the survival of their offspring depended on it. If a partner could no longer provide, protect, or inspire confidence, she needed the ability to shift her allegiance quickly, sometimes instantly. That wasn't betrayal, that was survival strategy. Now, in the modern world, we're no longer running from predators or fighting for daily survival in the same way. But the instincts are still there. They've been repurposed into the emotional and social realms. Instead of scanning the horizon for danger, she's scanning your ambition, your emotional strength, your ability to hold your own in the world. And just like in nature, when those qualities diminish, her instinct is to adjust, to flip. This is why you'll see women stay passionately in love with a man who challenges them, excites them, and maintains his own purpose. And you'll see the same women pull away from a man who lets himself drift, who becomes complacent, who stops being the man she once admired. It's not about cruelty, it's about alignment. When a man stops embodying the energy that drew her in, her instincts tell her something has shifted, and her emotions follow. And here's the brutal truth: those emotions can shift fast. That's why a woman who once adored you can, seemingly without warning, become distant. The shift didn't happen overnight inside her, it just became visible to you overnight. You're experiencing the reveal, not the process. And if you don't understand this duality, you'll spend your energy being angry at the suddenness instead of recognizing the signs that were there all along. Now, I'm not saying this to make you paranoid. I'm saying it because awareness is power. The more you understand this adaptability, the less likely you are to be blindsided by it. You'll stop thinking in terms of locking in her love and start thinking in terms of continually earning her respect, her admiration, and her desire. Because that's the reality: no relationship is static. It's either growing or it's decaying. Too many men fall into the trap of thinking, she loves me now, so I'm safe. That's not how it works. Love is alive, it breathes, it moves, it responds to the environment. If you want it to stay alive, you have to keep creating the conditions that made it grow in the first place. And that means maintaining your own edge. It means not losing yourself in the relationship. It means remembering that the same qualities that attracted her are the ones you need to keep embodying. Think of it like this: if you bought a beautiful plant and stopped watering it, stopped giving it sunlight, and then one day it wilted, would you really be surprised? Of course not, but with relationships, people forget this principle. They stop putting in the energy, they stop showing up with intention, and then they're shocked when the connection dries up. The difference with women is that their instincts will push them to act on that decline faster than most men expect. And yes, that can feel brutal. It can feel like she just switched on you. But if you shift your perspective, you'll see it for what it is: feedback. Feedback that you've stopped bringing something essential into the relationship. Feedback that you've started drifting from your own center. Feedback that she's responding to, consciously or not. If you can understand this duality, that a woman can be both deeply loving and capable of rapid detachment, you'll stop taking her changes personally. Instead, you'll start looking at them as signals that something in the dynamic needs attention. And when you respond to those signals early, when you keep your own standards high and your purpose clear, you won't have to fear the flip. Because the flip doesn't happen to men who remain grounded, who remain magnetic, who remain leaders in their own lives. So here's the truth you need to carry with you: women don't flip without reason. They flip when something in the environment tells them they must. And the man who understands that, who sees the signs, who maintains his edge, who never stops being the man she was drawn to, that man doesn't have to chase loyalty. He inspires it. Asterisk, asterisk, and remember this asterisk, asterisk: the duality isn't the enemy. It's the nature of the game. You can resent it or you can master it. But if you choose to master it, you'll never again be caught off guard by the shift. You'll see it coming, and more importantly, you'll know how to keep the ground beneath her feet so steady that she never needs to look elsewhere for solid footing. If you really want to understand why women can change direction in a relationship, you can't avoid talking about hypergamy. I know it's a word that makes some people uncomfortable because it's been twisted into memes and internet debates. But strip away the noise, and it's simply an evolutionary reality. Hypergamy is the tendency, conscious or subconscious, for a woman to seek the highest value partner available to her. And that word asterisk, value asterisk, is important because it doesn't just mean money. It means status, confidence, capability, influence, emotional strength, and yes, resources. Now, the word asterisk, available asterisk, is equally important. Hypergamy isn't necessarily about women always wanting more just for the sake of it. It's about wanting alignment with the best option she perceives in her world at that moment. That perception is key because what's best isn't always measured by a bank account. It's measured by the total package: security, ambition, competence, the ability to lead, and the emotional polarity that keeps attraction alive. And here's where the shift in priorities comes in. If a woman perceives, and perception is reality in this case, that a man is no longer the best option available to her, something changes inside her. It might be subtle at first. She may not even act on it right away, but the seed is planted, and if that perception grows, so does the emotional distance. To a man, this might feel like betrayal. To her, it feels like survival, because for thousands of years, choosing the right partner wasn't just about romance, it was about life or death. A man who couldn't provide or protect meant vulnerability. That ancient wiring still exists today, even in a modern world where women can earn their own money, live independently, and make choices freely. The instinct is still there because instincts don't vanish in a few decades of social change. They've been hardwired over millennia. Here's what most men miss: hypergamy doesn't just activate when another man enters the picture. It can activate simply because her own standards for her life have evolved, but you haven't kept pace. If she's growing intellectually, emotionally, socially, and you're standing still, the gap between you starts to feel wider. And that gap is where discontent lives. It's not always about her finding someone else. It's about her realizing that the man she once admired isn't showing up in the same way anymore. Maybe when you met, you had a vision, you had momentum, you were chasing something bigger than yourself. That energy is magnetic, but over time life got comfortable. You started coasting, and that comfort, while it feels good to you, can signal something very different to her: a decline. That's when hypergamy doesn't look like she left for someone richer. It looks like she drifted away because she stopped seeing you as the man she could bet her future on. And I don't mean future in the sense of financial dependency. I mean future in the sense of emotional security, ambition, and stability in masculine leadership. If you think this is harsh, consider it from her perspective. Imagine being with someone who once inspired you, who lit a fire in you, but slowly that fire started to fade. You don't feel as safe, as drawn, as proud to be with them. You notice small signs: less decisiveness, more hesitation, less drive, more distraction. You try to rationalize it, but eventually your instincts say, "This is not the same man I chose." That is hypergamy in motion, not gold digging, but a recalibration of alignment. Now, the modern problem is that many men treat commitment like a finish line. They think, once I have her, the work is done. But in reality, commitment is the starting line of an entirely different race, one where the challenge isn't to win her, but to keep her inspired, to remain the man she was drawn to. Hypergamy doesn't care about your past achievements. It cares about your current and future trajectory. You could have been the most desirable man in the room 5 years ago, but if you've stopped growing, stopped leading, stopped pursuing your own potential, that value diminishes in her eyes. And this is where a lot of men get bitter. They'll say, "So she's just going to leave if something better comes along." But that's the wrong frame. The better question is, why wouldn't you want to be the something better, not just compared to other men, but compared to the man you were yesterday? Why wouldn't you want to live in such a way that her instinct for hypergamy is always satisfied right where she is? Because here's the truth: hypergamy isn't your enemy, it's your mirror. It shows you where you've let yourself slide. It reflects back the reality of whether you've stayed sharp or gone dull, and instead of resenting it, you can use it as a motivator. If you remain ambitious, if you maintain your edge, if you never lose the qualities that made you magnetic in the first place, hypergamy works in your favor. She's not looking elsewhere because her instincts already know she's with the best option, But here's the brutal side: hypergamy is always scanning, always evaluating, and if you've been coasting, the scan will pick it up before you even realize you've been slipping. That's why some men get hit with the out-of-nowhere breakup or the sudden coldness. They didn't notice the decline in themselves. She did. Now, I want to make this clear. I'm not saying you have to live your life trying to please or impress a woman every day. That's not leadership, that's servitude. What I'm saying is that you have to live your life in such a way that you're proud of yourself, that you respect yourself, that you remain in a state of forward motion. When you do that, her perception of your value remains high because it's rooted in real growth, not just the honeymoon phase energy. And this isn't about playing games or putting on a facade. A facade always cracks. This is about becoming and staying the man you would want to follow if you were in her position. Because women are not just lovers, they're investors. They invest their time, their trust, their emotional energy. And like any investor, they watch the performance of what they've invested in. If the performance declines, they reevaluate. That's not evil, that's smart. The man who understands this doesn't fear hypergamy. He respects it. He knows it's part of the dance, part of the challenge, part of what keeps the dynamic alive. And here's the beautiful thing: when you keep growing, when you keep evolving, when you keep leading, hypergamy doesn't have to lead her away from you. It keeps her drawn to you because her instincts tell her she's already with the man who's moving forward, who's worth betting on, who's worth following. I've seen men who understood this build decades, long relationships full of passion and mutual respect. And I've seen men who ignored it get blindsided by a shift they thought could never happen. The difference wasn't in how much she loved them. The difference was in whether they kept giving her a reason to keep choosing them. So the takeaway is simple but powerful. Hypergamy is always in play, but it's not a death sentence for commitment. It's a constant challenge to remain valuable, not in some superficial way, but in the way that truly matters: your strength, your vision, your ability to lead, your capacity to create a life worth sharing. When you focus on those, the shift in priorities doesn't pull her away. It reinforces her decision to stay. Asterisk asterisk, and here's the line you need to remember: asterisk asterisk. In a world where priorities shift and options are everywhere, the only way to keep her instinctively invested is to keep becoming the man whose value never stops rising, not for her, for you. Because when you live like that, she won't have to look up to find something better. She'll already be looking right at it. If you've been following the thread so far, you've probably started to see a pattern. Women don't just flip out of nowhere. There's always a trigger, a shift in perception, a change in the emotional climate. And here's one of the most misunderstood truths about female nature: a woman's emotional investment in you is conditional. Now, I know the word asterisk conditional asterisk makes some people bristle. It sounds cold, transactional, even unromantic. We've all grown up with stories, movies, and songs that preach the ideal of unconditional love, love that's unwavering, no matter what. But here's the reality: unconditional love exists between a parent and a child, or between a person and their faith, or in extremely rare spiritual bonds. Romantic relationships, especially between men and women, operate differently. They're built on conditions that, when met, fuel connection, and when unmet, erode it. A woman's emotional investment in you is directly tied to how you make her feel in the present moment. Not just the past, not just the promises of the future, the asterisk present asterisk, and that's a hard pill for some men to swallow because we tend to believe our history together should count for something. We think, but look at everything I've done for her. Look at the years we've shared. And yes, those things have weight, but only if the current reality still aligns with what drew her in to begin with. You can't coast on the interest of past deposits forever. Emotional accounts require consistent deposits: respect, attraction, trust, excitement. If you stop making those deposits, the account runs dry, And when that happens, her investment shifts, sometimes gradually, sometimes overnight. This is why a woman can be deeply in love with you when you're at your best, when you're confident, ambitious, focused, and leading with clarity, and then begin to feel disconnected when you start to lose that edge. It's not that she's heartless, it's that her feelings are tied to what she's experiencing right now. That's the nature of emotional investment. It's alive. It changes with the environment. Some men make the mistake of thinking that once she's emotionally invested, it's permanent. They stop doing the little things. They stop communicating with the same intensity. They stop pursuing their own growth. And when she starts to withdraw, they panic, not realizing that the withdrawal was simply the natural response to unmet conditions. Now, let's be clear, these conditions aren't a checklist she consciously writes down. Most of them are subconscious, driven by instinct. She might not be able to articulate it in words, but she can feel it. She knows when she feels safe, attracted, inspired, and proud to stand beside you. And she knows when that feeling is fading. That's why it's dangerous to ignore the small signals, the sighs, the shorter texts, the reduced physical affection, the lack of enthusiasm when she talks to you. These aren't random mood swings. They're early warnings that the conditions of her emotional investment are not being met. Philosophically, this makes perfect sense. In any relationship, business, friendship, romance, investment is conditional. You keep investing in something as long as it's giving you returns, whether those returns are financial, emotional, or spiritual. When the returns dry up, you pull back. The difference is, in romantic relationships, the returns are not numbers on a spreadsheet. They're feelings, they're experiences. They're the way she perceives you in her life. Some men hear this and get defensive. So I have to keep proving myself every day. No, it's not about proving yourself. It's about continuing to be yourself, the best version of yourself. The version she was drawn to, the version that made her feel alive, safe, and excited. When you lose that version, her emotions recalibrate. When you maintain it, her emotions deepen. Let's be real. This conditional nature is a double-edged sword. On one side, it means you can't ever fully relax into thinking the relationship will sustain itself without effort. On the other, it means you have constant influence over the emotional climate. You can re-spark attraction. You can rebuild trust. You can shift the energy back in your favor if you're willing to confront where you've let things slide. The danger is when you start believing love alone is enough. Love is the foundation, yes, but it's not the entire structure. Without respect, attraction, and alignment, love becomes sentiment nice to remember, but not strong enough to hold a relationship together. Women instinctively know this, which is why they act on it faster than men do. When those conditions fade, their instincts push them to make a change. And here's something most men don't realize. When she starts pulling back, she's often already been emotionally withdrawing for weeks or months. You're noticing the external symptoms long after the internal decision-making process began. And that process is built entirely on the present reality, not the past memories. From a psychological perspective, this is about reinforcement. Human beings repeat behaviors that are rewarded. When a woman feels her needs are being met, emotional safety, physical attraction, respect for your leadership, she invests more. When those needs are consistently unmet, she invests less. It's not vindictive, it's behavioral conditioning. This is why complacency is so dangerous. Complacency says, I've already done enough, but in reality, the conditions of her investment are dynamic, not static. What was enough a year ago might not be enough today, not because she's never satisfied, but because life changes, challenges arise, and both of you evolve. The man who keeps pace with that evolution remains worthy of her investment. The man who doesn't gets left behind. If you've ever seen a woman leave a man she once loved deeply, only to fully commit to another man soon after, it's because the new man is meeting conditions the first man stopped meeting. And while the first man is left wondering how she could just move on, the truth is she didn't just move on, she'd already detached when the conditions stopped being met. Meeting someone new simply accelerated what was already in motion. Now, here's the empowering part. When you understand that emotional investment is conditional, you can stop living in fear of her leaving and start living with intention. You can choose to be consistent in the qualities that attracted her in the first place. You can choose to keep growing, keep leading, keep making her feel what she felt when she first decided to give herself to you. And that doesn't mean constant grand gestures. It means presence. It means ambition. It means following through on your word. It means being the man who doesn't just talk about his values, but lives them. When you do that, her investment isn't something you have to beg for. It's something she offers willingly, eagerly, and with depth. One last thing, some men try to manipulate this by creating artificial conditions, making her jealous with holding affection, playing mind games. That's not leadership, that's insecurity disguised as strategy. Conditional investment thrives on genuine strength, not forced scarcity. You can't fake this long term. Either you are the man she can confidently invest in, or you're not. The beauty of this truth is that it puts the power back in your hands. You don't have to wait and hope she stays. You can create the conditions that keep her emotionally engaged. You can become the man whose presence alone meets those conditions without a single word. That's the real game, asterisk asterisk, and remember this asterisk asterisk. Love may open the door, but conditions keep it open. If you stop meeting those conditions, the door closes, and it doesn't matter how long you've been inside. But if you keep showing up with the strength, ambition, and presence that drew her in, she won't just stay, she'll keep choosing you again and again, every single day.